Hello from the Global Legal Blockchain Consortium in New York City, New York. I'm Alex Muncey.
I'm Amy Braunz.
I'm Paul Wambua.
And we're on the road with Legal Talk Network. And we're back. Thank you so much for joining us on the road in the Big Apple. Today, we're talking about blockchain with Paul Wambua and Amy. Amy, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I'm Amy. I'm with Integra Ledger, which is blockchain for law. And I'm also an organizer for the Global Legal Hackathon, which is having its grand finale tomorrow.
And Paul, could you also please tell us a little bit about your background and what you're doing here?
Well, thank you very much. Like I said, Paul Wambua. I'm an executive director with Duis Group Africa, a Pan-African investment fund based out of Mauritius, and we serve credit unions in Africa.
Fantastic. And I should probably also mention who I am. I'm Alex Muncey. I work with RSG Consulting in London. We're a legal consultancy and strategy firm, and we also write the FT Financial Times Innovative Lawyers Reports. So, Paul, thanks for joining us today. My first question is, what do you see as possible applications for blockchain technology in the credit union space in East Africa?
One of the biggest opportunities I've seen is where credit unions can share technology. I mean, I would want to call it to create a shared economy, because credit unions back home still have a lot of manual operations. And I think there's an opportunity for credit unions to share data, to use, blockchain platforms to minimize costs, to, control, risks, to improve on efficiencies, and particularly to, share these platforms to reduce investment in capital projects, but more importantly, to create trust. To build trust in the systems, avail data cost effectively, and improve service delivery, particularly deepening financial inclusion, because most of the members that credit unions serve are spread all over diverse geographies, and therefore this is a big opportunity for ensuring that there is even data integrity, sharing of information, and ensuring that there is access to information in a timely, accurate, and comprehensive manner.
That's great. We were talking a little bit earlier about the trust aspect of it, and how in the U.S. and in the UK and Europe, there actually is still quite a bit of fraud that goes on in the banking industry. And that's in the US and the UK. Can you talk about some of the trust issues that are going on with the credit unions in Kenya?
An excellent question, Amy. One of the biggest challenges that we have is about data integrity, meaning that people do not trust the information that they are given, including basic things like, trusting that your financial statement reflects the true position of your account. That's very important. And remember, credit unions deal with financial resources, and therefore data integrity, believing and trusting that information is accurate and represents the true position of the members or customers' transactions with the institution is very important. So fraud is one of the major challenges. Internal controls and ensuring that the information is secure, that the information is believable, and the information can be audited and verified. So issues of data integrity to deal with verification, accuracy, completeness, timeliness, that's very, very important. And these are challenges that we are facing. In fact, I see the discussion in today's meeting here as one of the ways to address those problems, because the problems are real, the problems exist, and the problems that I've discussed about integrity, lack of trust, inaccurate information, reliability of information, and even the manner in which that information is stored, have got an impact on how people believe that they can do business with these credit unions. And therefore, if we are going to improve their reputation, the image, the integrity of credit unions, then we must start by addressing the management of information to ensure that there is integrity. Therefore, I find today's meeting to be a very important opportunity for me to learn new ways of managing this, and I do look forward to a collaboration, between the African credit unions and what is going on here.
What's your outlook for the tech industry in Kenya? I mean, my understanding is Kenya and together with Nigeria seem to have a more developed tech industry, and it's sort of the pinnacle of the tech hub in East Africa. Do you see that ecosystem being able to rise to the challenge and address some of those issues? Do you see blockchain as something that can come out of East Africa, or are you looking more towards Western companies in the US or in Europe to help you to implement those sort of things?
Now, I see Kenya leapfrogging systematic advancement of technology, in the sense that Kenya provided mobile payments, mobile money to the world. Mm-hmm. M-Pesa is a Kenyan innovation. I'm saying Kenya provided mobile innovation to the world. And therefore, we have seen a situation where in Kenya, mobile penetration is at 93%. I guess the highest in the world as we speak. What that has meant is that there has been a very positive reception of, mobile solutions, services, including digitization. So in terms of Kenya embracing this new development, this emerging technology, this emerging innovation, I see it being done much faster than we can even project. And I know there are already programs that are going on. In the last couple of months, IBM and the Ministry of Agriculture in Kenya has been piloting a project of using blockchain as part of improving our agricultural programs in Kenya. So it's already as to that is going to gain currency in Kenya. It's a matter of time. And the reason being that the technological platforms in Kenya have been well received, even by the rural communities. Mobile phones, for example, have become a storage of value. They have become, essentially they're mobile banks. They're mobile banks in terms of saving and money transfer, people transacting using mobile phones as a means of exchanging value and storing value. So this is something that I see happening much faster in Kenya than any other part of Africa.
So you mentioned that the mobile penetration in Kenya is at 93%, which is staggeringly high. And part of that comes from the fact that you skipped this in-between step of laying down landlines, and you were able to go straight from basics of not having anything to having mobile. You also mentioned that a lot of your processes are still manual. They're not digitized. So in much the same way, you can go from basically not having any sort of technology to having blockchain, which is fantastic. But what do you see would be some of the hurdles to actually making that happen?
Thank you very much, Amy, for that question. A number of things. One of them is we'll need to have a legal framework that, gives confidence that this is something that is supported by, the government. I think the question of political capital is important. I think that's the way I want to put it. Secondly is we need also to, educate the masses, create awareness, explain to them what blockchain is in terms of them applying it as part of their business transaction tool. So education is key. I've talked about political capital, enabling an appropriate technology. That's important for people to believe and to trust that what they're doing is protected and can be defended by a legal framework. So those are some of the things that I think are important. But in terms of the acceptability, that I see it as being done through, basic awareness, creation, education, and so forth. And you're right, we did not have to invest so much on landlines, but we embraced mobile technology very fast. And I've seen another example. Very many people went straight to saving money through their mobile phones when M-Pesa came on board than going to open accounts in the banks. And therefore, what we are seeing right now is that banks are closing branches because banking transactions now are mobile enabled. So I see the same thing with blockchain technology, and especially with our devolved system of governance, where now we have a lot of activities in devolved countries, what we call counties. And this is the same thing. When Kenya does it, I see the rest of East Africa doing it because we are members of the East Africa community and the African Free Trade area. So these are very exciting moments, especially if we will succeed in selling this idea. And like I told you earlier in one of our discussions, I would like this to be an agenda in the SACCO Congress in Accra, Ghana in October this year. It is something that I'm going to ensure that we push it now to start creating the awareness I'm talking about.
When you talk about building political capital and really sort of getting some momentum behind the strive towards blockchain, what do you think are the sort of the critical elements, or do you think that the credit unions are really at a point where they're ready to embrace this sort of technology?
Thank you. The credit union ecosystem in Kenya is organized in such a manner that it is easy to sell new ideas to gain political capital. So we have the African Confederation of Credit Unions, whose headquarters is Nairobi. The executive director is Kenyan. We have the National Association, the Kenya Union of Savings and Credit Cooperatives, which has got over 3,000 credit unions serving about 10 million Kenyans. And therefore, we already have a framework to create that support because we are structured, we are organized, and we have programs that we can use to spell out this agenda. So I do not see that as a challenge. If anything, it's going to be an advantage. We already have the structure, we have got the membership, we have got organized forums in terms of conferences, workshops, regional meetings, member education programs in individual credit unions. And therefore, all we need is to craft the agenda of blockchain technology in a manner that is going to be, disseminated to create understanding. And once that is done, then we have got a leadership structure that will be able to prepare proposals and take them to the relevant legislative arms of government through the Ministry of Trade and Industry, where cooperatives are housed. So there is a structure, there is an enabling environment, there is a mechanism to create awareness. We have got a highly literate credit union membership, which will, understand this. And we already, from even a business perspective, they will be able to see the value of this, particularly if this is also going to help credit unions to start sharing resources, because that has been an ongoing agenda for some time. I see this as the right moment now to use blockchain technology to actually advance that agenda to another higher level.
Thank you, Paul. Before we close out today, I just have one last question for you. If our listeners want to follow you or get in touch, how can they reach you?
Thank you very much. My email address is paul.wambua, WAMBUA at Duis Group, DUISgroup.com. I'm also on LinkedIn.
Well, thank you, Paul. I want to thank you for joining us today. And
thank you, Alex.
Thank you so much for coming all this way.
Thank you, Amy.
And I also want to thank our listeners for tuning in. If you'd like what you heard, please find and rate us in Apple Podcasts. We'll see you next time for another episode of On the Road with Legal Talk Network.
If you'd like more information about what you've heard today, please visit LegalTalkNetwork.com. Subscribe via iTunes and RSS. Find us on Twitter and Facebook, or download our free Legal Talk Network app in Google Play and iTunes. The views expressed by the participants of this program are their own and do not represent the views of, nor are they endorsed by, Legal Talk Network, its officers, directors, employees, agents, representatives, shareholders, and subsidiaries. None of the content should be considered legal advice. As always, consult a lawyer.